much for joining us if you're tuning in live or watching this recording at a later time. I'm Lindsay, co-owner of Stacked Up Fitness, and today we have Mona on our show today. She's going to be teaching us how to make a one-pan dinner as well as some delicious chocolate chips. Now, Mona has over 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She's written over 20 books for her clients, including this lovely The Perfect Portion, which is one of my favorite cookbooks, as well as Satisfy is her new cookbook coming out in early September. So we're super excited to have her on the show. And without further ado, I'm going to switch it over. She's going to take over the show, and we are going to make some yummy meals. All right.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Anthony. I'm so delighted to be here today. So excited. And today I'm going to be featuring one of my favorite recipes that's coming out of my new cookbook, Satisfy, which will be available in the fall. So my cookbook, what's it all about? Why is it called Satisfy? Well, it's called Satisfy because typically when you look at any other cookbooks that are around, they tell you this is one serving. You never really feel full after you eat it because they're trying to get you to go towards a certain caloric count or whatever. And so what I've made sure with every one of my recipes in my book is that every meal is 500 calories or less, and you're going to be shocked and surprised and what I call OMG that, wow, this is one portion and I can eat all of this and it could be 500 calories or less. All of the recipes are gluten-free. All of the recipes are what I call nutrient dense, which means we've added a lot more ingredients that are all real and fresh, more vegetables. For you guys who are interested in going a little bit more what I call plant forward, I've made sure that every meal in my book has at least 3 cups of vegetables per person in it so that you're getting all the phytonutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and the fiber. My recipes also are all about ease. So every recipe preparation-wise is going to take 30 minutes or less to prepare, and you can prepare it. I have chapters based on sheet pan meals, air fryer meals, oven meals, and a section on, I'm very excited, my new chapter called Snackertaining, which is a combination of healthy snacks and also little noshes that you could have for entertaining purposes, and also, of course, desserts. So tonight we're going to be doing a balsamic salmon with Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes with my favorite sauce, and I'm going to show you different ways that you can kind of tweak. And so every recipe really isn't what I call stringent. If there's a vegetable you see in a recipe that you don't like and you want to sub it in with another one, that's okay. And there are charts in my book to kind of show you which recipes cook at how much time so you can do easy swaps as well. For dessert, we're going to be featuring my signature recipe, which is an avocado chocolate chip cookie. So easy to make. This is going to be your go-to. Unbelievable. All healthy fats. The only fat that's in that cookie is the avocado. And I'll show you how quickly and how easy that is to make as well. So why don't we get started? So today we're going to do a sheet pan meal, and we're going to put in, typically most of my recipes serve 2, and I purposefully did that so that you would always have 1 for leftover. And also it's also easy to kind of divide as far as knowing really how much you're supposed to eat, because a lot of recipes say serve 6, serve 8, but you really don't know how to kind of divide and separate it. So I've made sure that all of my recipes serve 2. Some like soups and stews and things like that, it might be 4. For desserts, of course, it'll be multiple, but there'll be pieces. So you'll know per cookie or per cupcake or whatever like that. Today, when I'm going to prepare the salmon, I'm actually going to make half of a recipe because I've already made the other half. And I want to show you first what that looks like. It's always good to show in the beginning. So this is what we're going to make today. Check this out. This recipe is a balsamic salmon with a balsamic orange glaze, and I've got sweet potatoes, some Brussels sprouts, and some broccoli. And this is 1 portion, guys. 1 portion, which looks like a lot of food, and you know what? It is a lot of food. It's about 5 ounces of salmon, but note that 2/3 of my plate are filled with vegetables. And that's really how you should be eating now, what I call plant forward. It's really important, especially now during these times, to eat as much vegetables, go as plant-based as you can. And so you'll see that 2/3 of the plate are vegetables, And then 1/3 is the protein. I've got my healthy fat because I've added a little bit of olive oil into making the sauce for the recipe. And as far as my whole grain, tonight I'm using a starchy vegetable, which is the sweet potato, which gives you great carbs as well as a whole vitamin, phytonutrient, vitamin A, vitamin C, the whole shebang. So, but I just wanted to show you, this is a pretty big plate full of food, don't you think? So let's go figure out how to make it. So the first thing you're going to do, this is what I call a sheet pan meal. I preheated my oven to about 400 degrees. And typically when I do a sheet pan meal, it's usually at around 400 degrees. I have my salmon, which is, I had bought like 3/4 of a pound of salmon. This is half of it. So this is one portion. This is about 5 ounces. And the first thing that we're going to do is make the sauce or the marinade for the fish. So what I like to do is I don't like to put a lot. Olive oil is very, very, very good for you. As you know, as part of the Mediterranean diet, and I try to follow those principles in all of these recipes, but you also have to be mindful on how much. So in my recipe, I show you specifically how much olive oil and vinegar to choose. And so for this specific marinade, I'm putting in some olive oil. This is about 3/4 of a tablespoon because it's like 1.5 tablespoons for the recipe. I'm putting in some balsamic vinegar. I'm putting in just a little bit of honey, just like the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of honey. So this is 1 teaspoon of honey. And then I'm putting in, one of my favorite things that I love to put in a lot of my recipes is zest. And for those of you who don't use zest, I'm going to tell you right now, you should. What's great about zest is that it adds a lot of flavor. And zest is the skins that come from citrus fruits. So it could be lemon zest, it could be lime zest, it could be orange zest. And what's great about the zest, it's got soluble fiber, but the also great thing, do you know that it has about 3 times as much vitamin C as the fruit inside? And it offers, you could just smell it, just offers so much aromatic flavor, and just a little bit goes a long way. So the recipe calls for just a teaspoon, but you'll just taste that almost orange flavoring on it without having to add sugary juice or anything to it. So I'm adding a little bit of orange zest. So that looks like that. And then for those of you who might ask, well, how do you zest? So I'm going to show you really quick how to zest. I don't have my handy dandy zester here, but I do have one of these box grates. And if you have a box grate, you can use the side part and zest. And then all you have to do is put it in a bowl and just kind of rub the skin of the orange into the bowl. And guess what? You've got zest. So I just wanted to kind of show you, it's that simple to make. And it, you know, looks like basically, oh, it smells so good. It's basically, you know, the little bit of skins, and it just offers so much flavor. So I've got my oil, I've got my balsamic vinegar, I've got my orange zest. And the last thing I'm going to put in, the recipe calls for some crushed rosemary. I actually decided I'm using a little bit of flexibility. I have a little herb garden in my backyard, so I don't have rosemary, but I had a combination of oregano and thyme. So I got some oregano and thyme from my garden. So if you don't like rosemary, it's no big deal. Orange goes well with thyme, it goes well with basil. So I chopped up some basil and thyme, and I'm just going to put that in this recipe as well. And if you guys have any questions while I'm cooking this up, please feel free and ask. So right now I'm just mixing up the marinade. And you might say that's it, but you know what? This is all the marinade you really need because you don't want it soaking up too much. There was a question, I had given a cooking class before, there was a question about, well, how long do you need to marinate fish for? Isn't it good to marinate fish for an entire day and it'll taste so good for the end of the day? And the answer to that question, in my judgment, is no. If you're going to marinate fish, the maximum time you should really marinate fish is only about 10 or 15 minutes, or else the fish will start to get a little bit mushy. So, so that's the answer to that. You could take this marinade that's in this recipe if you wanted to use it for another protein. It would go great with like a chicken. It would go great with another kind of fish. So great with tofu. So one other great thing about my book, if you see the sauce that looks kind of nice, and I'm going to index it in the back, you can use that sauce for whatever protein you choose to use. And there's tons of sauces throughout the book. So
I have a question.
Sure.
So in your recipe, it calls for dried crushed rosemary.
Yes.
What's the equivalent when you use fresh herbs? Like if it's something,
Yeah, good question. I think with fresh, you use about 2 to 3 times more than you would for dried.
Okay.
Great question. I actually looked that up before I started.
Okay.
So one other question, for the fish, do you actually take the skin off the fish before you cook it?
You can or you can't. It depends on what you want, what you choose to do. I don't eat the skin, so if I'm gonna, sometimes I might want to grill this instead of putting it in the oven. So if I'm gonna grill it, sometimes I have the fishmonger kind of take the skin off. I think, whatever you choose that you want to do. I think the skin kind of helps hold the fish together. So, it's really not, usually after you cook it, it just comes right off. So it's
right.
Any other questions? Good question.
Typically I cook it and then I just take it off and throw it out.
Yeah, me too. That's what I do too.
Okay.
Any other questions? Awesome. So I'm just going to take, so I've made my sauce here, and I'm just going to take 1 or 2 teaspoons. That's all you really need to do. I'm going to only do 1 teaspoon here because remember, this is my half portion. So you're just going to you want to make sure that you just kind of put a light coating of the fish. And remember, just to review, you've got some honey, vinegar, olive oil, thyme, basil, and you've got your orange zest. And you're just going to, if it's sliding like it is, just kind of coat it. And the other thing that I did on a pan, just so you know, the pan, I used foil for this pan. You could use parchment paper if you want to. The trick between parchment paper and foil, if you're going to cook over 400 degrees, make sure you use foil. If 400 degrees or under, 400 degrees or under, use parchment paper. 400 degrees over, use foil. Otherwise, the parchment could start to burn. So that's just a little trick. Tonight, I'm using foil. So I put my marinade on my fish. So now it's time to marinate the vegetables. So I chopped up a sweet potato, and actually for 2 servings, it's 1 large sweet, it's about 1 medium sweet potato, 1 small to medium sweet potato per person. A trick with sweet potato, I don't know, has anyone ever tried to cut a sweet potato? It's really hard, like when you chop it into little pieces. So one of my Mona tricks for a sweet potato, if you want to soften it up a little bit before you cut it, sometimes I just pierce it with a fork and I put it in the microwave for 1 minute. And if you do that, it's so much easier to slice and cut it into little pieces. It's a little trick that I learned because I cut myself once really badly, and so I'll never do that again. So one trick that you should have when you're cutting sweet potatoes, we just want to microwave it for like a minute, minute and a half. It'll soften up, you can cut it up, and it'll be great. So you want to cut this up into small chunks, and I'm going to put, what you're going to do, you're going to put all the vegetables in this big bowl with the marinade. So I'm putting in my sweet potatoes, and you'll notice, well, one thing with sweet potatoes, typically sweet potatoes might take 40 to 50 minutes to bake, to roast in the oven. But the smaller you cut them, the smaller pieces that you cut them, they'll take less time. So that's one of the tricks too, that if you want a root vegetable with your dinner that typically takes 25 minutes, you might want to cut those root vegetables like a potato or a sweet potato into small little pieces, so then that way it will cook at approximately the same time. The other trick is having that I microwaved it for a minute and cut it up. It's already pre-cooked a little bit, so that will also help as well. Okay, so I put in my sweet potato. I'm also going to put in some Brussels sprouts, which I cut up in half like so. And then the recipe also calls for cut up a red pepper. I decided instead of red pepper, I used my red pepper for my red bell pepper nachos this afternoon. So I'm going to use broccoli instead. But why am I using broccoli? Because I know, and there's a chart in my book that you'll get, hopefully, that shows you what time, how long it takes for different types of vegetables to roast and what protein kind of goes well with it. So in my chart, I have, well, here's the choices for 20 to 25 minutes. And broccoli is one of those choices, red pepper is one of those choices, Brussels sprouts is one of those choices. So it's a nice, really great handy dandy guide to use in the future. Okay, so I put my vegetables in here. And then all you want to do is basically take the marinade and just mix it around. And if you think about it, we really didn't add that much marinade, but you know what? It's enough. And because it's going to coat it really lightly, you didn't overdo it with the oil, You got the sweetness and the savoriness of the vinegar and the orange zest and the teeny bit of honey that you put in. And you're just going to roll it around in the sauce just for a few minutes, making sure it gets coated. And you know, the tablespoon or so of each one of the things is plenty for this whole recipe. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. Any other questions? Well, okay. So I'm going to go back to my little.
I do have a question. I'm sorry. So the 5 ounces is for, okay, like a woman portion versus like with my husband, I would make a larger portion. Because like, did you buy the fish already cut? Did you cut it yourself?
I cut it myself. So I always ask for my husband and me. I always ask for about 3/4 of a pound of fish for the 2 of us. I'm a big plant-forward gal, in that I think it's really important to have at least 3 cups or more of vegetables. As far as the amount of protein you need for a meal, I would say for women it's 4 to 6 ounces, whether you're a woman or a man, or close, you know, depending on your appetite or whatever. And so I always try to think this is for 500 calories or less. So if you wanted to eat something else with it, like a salad, you could add that on. If you wanted to add a little bit of whole grains and you wanted to add up 100 or 200 calories, you could add like a ½ cup of cooked brown rice, a salad, another vegetable. So, but I think as far as amount of protein, I think 4 to 6 ounces is enough. It's just enough protein to have in a given meal.
Okay, thanks.
I have a quick question about the Brussels sprouts.
Sure.
Are there any particular way to cut them? Because I hate putting like any part of the chunky stems in there, because I like when they're like almost crispy and crunchy. Do you have any tricks on how?
Yeah, so what I do when I cut each end first, and then I cut it in half down the center. So each piece kind of looks like this.
Ooh, that actually worked very well.
See?
Ooh, game changer.
So you cut each end first, and then you slit it right down the middle. And then sometimes the leaves kind of come out. If you like the crunchiness, you can throw the leaves in, and they're almost going to be like chips, like when you take it out of the oven. Okay?
Thank you.
No worries. All right, so I'm going to take my veg. I've sprayed some olive oil on the cookie sheet. I'm going to take my veg, and I'm just going to put it on here. So any sheet pan meal is really simple or easy to make, because you could just pick your protein, pick your little sauce that you want to put on, select your vegetables that cook around the same time, and just put it together. And guys, this is just all for one person. I think that's a lot of food, don't you? And this whole meal, the nutritional value is, I think it's around 490 to 500 calories, lots of fiber, incredible amount of fiber. And the fiber is really what's going to keep you full. So tidy-wise, talk about phytonutrients. You got the vitamin A, you got the vitamin C, you've got the antioxidants. The Brussels sprouts and the broccoli are what I call have sulforaphanes in there. Great, you know, anti-cancer, you know, protection. So it's just a great, great meal. So I'm going to put this in the oven for anywhere between 20 to 25 minutes. And the other thing that you should be mindful of is how long do you cook it for? So the recipe called for 20 minutes, but you should look at the thickness of the salmon that you buy. So the rule of thumb for thickness of fish is every 3/4 to 1 inch of fish takes between 15 and 20 minutes. So sometimes you'll go to the fish store and you'll get a really thick piece of fish, and sometimes it'll be thinner. So be mindful of the time that and how much time you're going to cook it based upon the thickness of the piece of fish. Okay? So I'm just going to put this in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. And by the power of my kitchen, I feel like I'm on the Today Show. This is going to be your result. So it's a beautiful, beautiful dish of roasted vegetables, salmon. It's perfectly cooked. This cooked for about 25 minutes because it was a thick piece of fish. And you'll see the browning of the sweet potatoes, of the Brussels sprouts. You get a little bit of the crunchies. And it's just a really yummy, yummy, delicious meal. So that was easy, right?
If you wanted to add some brown rice or farro, would that be like a half a cup serving?
A half a cup cooked.
Half
So
a-
it's not a half a cup raw, but a half a cup cooked. Yeah, that will add about 150, 200 calories to the meal. Yeah, that's fine.
100, okay.
do that.
fine, okay, yep.
Any other questions? See, everybody's at different activity levels, like how much they work out, how many calories they want to put in, whatever. But my book is really to kind of help you. 500 calories is just a nice amount, and then it's easier always to add on than to take away. So this is a great foundation. So if you want to add a salad, a lot of people add salad, a lot of people add another vegetable. You want to put a half a cup of cooked rice, easy. You can definitely do that.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So other oils other than avocado. So there's other than olive oil, there's avocado oil, there's grapeseed oil. Do you ever use any of those? Because they are also olive oil is not a high heat oil, whereas avocado and grapeseed are higher heat.
Yeah, but olive oil, the smoke point of olive oil is comes above 400 degrees.
Okay.
So because I'm cooking this at 400 degrees, olive oil is okay. But you're right, after 400 degrees, the smoke point is high. So other options you can use is avocado oil, grapeseed oil is great. And I would just make sure that they're cold processed oils. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Are you ready for dessert? Lindsay, how are you doing there?
Good. I'm getting my food processor out.
Okay, good. So, so that was easy, right? So the next thing that we're going to make is some chocolate chip avocado cookies. And what I love about these cookies is like, I don't know, I'm a real chocolate person. I don't know if any of you guys are, but who is? And what I really love about these cookies is that I love the texture of them. They almost have like a pudding texture, which is kind of nice. They're extremely satisfying. I'm going to show you, I'll show you later what they look like for this one. And they're so easy to make. You can make them either in a food processor, or if you have a blender at home, you can make them in a blender. And the fat that you're going to use, typically with cookies, they're usually putting in sticks of butter, right? So for these cookies, instead of the butter, you're putting in a whole avocado. So just think about the health benefits of that. It's a good oil, the good omega-3s, unsaturated fat, filling, fiber, protein, and it's just so, so awesome. So the first thing that you're going to do, it's basically what I call a dump recipe, because you're throwing all the ingredients into the processor or your blender. So the first thing I'm going to add is an avocado. And typically you're going to cut your avocado this way, pop the pit out, which I did already, and then just take a spoon like this, and just you're going to scoop it into the food processor. And what's great about these cookies, they're just so devil's foody. You don't really even know that there's avocado in there. Like I fool people all the time with it. I probably make these. My kids were visiting for a month. My daughter was making them like every week. It's so funny. And they make about 10 cookies. Each cookie is about like 80-ish calories.
Wow.
Not bad. Yeah. Okay, so I put in my avocado. The next thing I'm going to put in is an egg. If you guys are vegan, you can use a flax egg. For those of you who don't know what a flax egg is, it's a combination of flaxseed powder and water. So it's 1 tablespoon of flaxseed powder to 3 tablespoons of water. You make it gelatinous. So based upon if you're vegan or not vegan, it's great. And remember, all these recipes are gluten-free. So those of you who are gluten sensitive, this is awesome. What's great about these cookies, they're gluten-free. They could be vegan. They're dairy-free. So it's just awesome. So you can use them wherever, whenever. So any sensitivity, this is like the cookie, your go-to cookie. So I'm putting in my egg.
Mona, how do you feel about egg replacement powder?
Egg replacement powder. I never heard of that. Tell me.
Gosh, I'll have to show you. I use it in my cooking. I just wanted your opinion. It's a powder. I actually don't even know what it's composed of, but it's
I'm going to look it up and I'll let you know. Okay. Okay, good. All right. So we have our egg, we have our avocado. The next thing that we're going to add is unsweetened cocoa powder, 1/4 cup. What's really great to remember about this recipe, it's an egg, an avocado, and just remember the fraction 1/4 because everything else is 1/4. So it's 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa. Unsweetened cocoa is also really good for you. It's got isoflavones, really nice. So you're putting that in. I'm going to put in 1/4 cup of sugar. So, or you could use coconut sugar if you choose. So if you think about it, it's 4 tablespoons of sugar over 10 cookies. So each cookie is basically getting like 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, which is pretty good. So I'm putting that in. And then 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and that will help the cookies rise a little bit. And that's it. So I'm going to put this on my handy dandy food processor. I'm going to, pardon the noise, I'm just going to mix it for about 15 seconds.
Can't hear her.
Okay, and what I'm going to do now is check. So what you need to do is check, you'll see there's little bits of avocado on top, see that? So, can you see it? So what I'm going to do is take my little spatula and just kind of bring it down. You want to make sure that all the avocado gets blended in. And I try to get a really nice ripe avocado to use for these cookies. You don't want to use one that's not ripe, because then you'll get pieces. You want to get something that's soft. Okay, so then all you do is put it back in for another 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, voila. Put that in the sink. I'll show you the batter. See, it's like how fudgy it is. Almost like a pudding, right? Yeah. So the last part's my favorite part. I'm gonna put in 1/4 cup, remember the quarter? So we've got 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 cup of dark chocolate chips. I go as dark as I can. So I like to use the 60 to 70% cacao chips. So I'm gonna put that in. But if you wanted to make these cookies your own, other things that I put in the cookie that's nice, sometimes you can put in a little bit of cinnamon. That almost gives it like a Viennese kind of flavor. If you want to put like a little bit of coffee, you can make a little mocha cookie if you wanted to. If you wanted to put in this like nuts, be mindful of the nuts because they can be high in fat and a little caloric, put a little bit of nuts in it. But my favorite is just doing it this way because they're just so good and so delicious. So you're going to take your cookie sheet. Your oven should be at 350 degrees. And I'm going to use some coconut oil spray for this. Again, it's a good high, as far as high temp oil. And then basically you take little spoonfuls of the cookie and you put it on the cookie sheet. You can use a little scooper if you want it. I'm just using a tablespoon. I don't have all my tools in my vacation place, so I'm just using what I got. This will make about 10 cookies. And what you may want to do, have your spatula on hand because you're going to need it at the end to kind of just scoop up the rest to get that last extra cookie. Any questions while I'm scooping?
I assume you could use parchment paper instead of a spray on it.
Use what? I'm sorry?
Parchment paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use usually get the spray that's not aerosol, but here I'm actually in Martha's Vineyard. They don't have a lot of inventory, so I had to just take what I can get. But I like using the sprays that are non-aerosol because they're better for the environment. They're better for you.
So are you using the spray with the parchment paper? I can't
Just
really.
a little bit, yeah. That's just to make sure that they don't stick. So I got 11 cookies out of this. So I'm just going to put this in the oven at 360 and they'll be ready in about 20 minutes. And by the power of Mona's Kitchen, I've already made a batch. So these are just so devil's foodie and yummy. They're so good. I'll eat one.
They look like they blew up. Like they
They
really.
did blow up.
Yeah.
They're kind of puddingy. They're really like, and when you eat them, they taste like a chocolate pudding cookie.
Ooh.
And one of my favorite ways to eat them, if you like warm cookies, I happen to like warm cookies, is that you can take, basically put the cookies and warm them up in the microwave or in the oven for like 10 seconds. And it tastes like an amazing, like hot brownie or hot cookie. One of my friends loves this recipe, and what she does is she makes a double or triple batter and puts it in an 8x8 pan and makes them into brownies, which is another way that you can use this batter. One, I like making them into cookies because I'm a big person about portion control, so at least I know how much I'm eating. If you make it in a brownie portion, you cut a square brownie, you're probably going to be eating 2 or 3 times the number of calories for dessert, but it's okay. Just be mindful of that. But why not just eat the one cookie and then just be mindful how much you're eating from a satiety film. Granted, after eating 1 or 2 cookies, you're gonna get full because there's fiber in it from the avocado, and they're delicious, and they're just thick and delicious and yummy. And you can have it with a little frozen yogurt if you like that, or just eating them warm and plain. And sometimes what I do, I'll cut up some fresh berries and I'll eat it with some fresh strawberries, and it's really yummy and really, really delicious. So that's it. So any questions on that? Quiet. Lindsay, how are you doing there?
Sorry, I was muted. Anthony's controlling my volume. So I don't have sugar in my kitchen. I don't know why, because I use honey.
Okay.
So can I use honey instead of the sugar? Or
Yeah, you can. It's going to taste a little bit different because honey has a distinct taste. It'll still be sweet, but it'll be just a little bit different. But you can if you want.
Yeah, because I actually had some applesauce, so I put a little bit of applesauce instead, and it came out a little obviously watery. So
Yeah, the applesauce, because the avocado is in this cookie, if you combine the avocado with the applesauce, they're going to get really soggy. So you definitely don't want to do that.
yeah.
I've seen recipes where you substitute for butter the use of applesauce. Is that common?
Yes. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can substitute butter. I'm just going to take my salmon into the oven because I think it's time. But yes, different substitutes for butter include things like applesauce, zucchini. Pumpkin is a really good substitute for butter, like the unsweetened pumpkin puree and things like avocado. And based upon the recipe, there's no real big rule of thumb because I don't know what other ingredients you're putting in, but there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of.
But it's not a 1-for-1. In other words, a stick of butter isn't the same as a cup of applesauce or avocado necessarily.
No, you have to
kind of watch that, right?
Yeah, baking is tricky. Baking is, there's a lot of chemistry. Having studied food science and nutrition in college, baking is definitely a science, and it's all about molecules and baking of molecules, and it's more of an exact science versus what we made for dinner. So I would be more mindful of following recipes for baking versus making like a one-pan meal where you can swap sauces and things like that. Yeah.
So when is your cookbook coming out? This one, Satisfy, that you were talking about?
My cookbook's coming out in September.
Okay.
If you go to my website, monadolgov.com, You can pre-order it now, and you get a special price of $24.99. It will be $29.99 when it's out on the streets.
I did. I actually ordered 2 books.
Oh,
So
thank
just
you.
wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to come out in September.
Okay,
And
great.
I'm really excited. The book is shaping. I'm just finishing doing my last rounds of edits now, and it's just great. It's like so much information. I would say, no, I got to put this in. I have to put that. And you just reminded me I wanted to put something else in tonight. So I'm definitely going to add in some interesting information that we talked about this evening too.
Yeah, the other, Mona, do you still sell the Perfect Portion cookbook?
Yes. So
Yeah.
my other cookbook, The Perfect Portion, I have a copy of it right here.
I have it right here. It is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I was going to ask you to see if you had another book. Yeah. To
Yeah.
show the book to show.
Yeah. The Perfect Portion Cookbook. I wrote this 3 years ago, and this is a fun story. I actually wrote this cookbook with, are you guys familiar with the show Happy Days from way back when? Well, Potsy, Anson Williams and I wrote this book together. So yeah, and he's a really good friend of mine now. And the story behind us writing this book, he was producing, which is what he does now, and he was producing behind the scenes. And he was gaining weight because he never really knew how much he should eat. And he had this revelation when he was in the supermarket of these 100-calorie packs. And he goes, no one's ever written a cookbook where I know what 100 calories means. So he said, so Mona, write a cookbook. Show me what 100 calorie means, but I want indulgent food. I want pot roast and chicken pot pie and beef stew. And I said, well, I'll make it. This is what I'll do for you. I'll show you, we can do 100. I'll show you what a 100-calorie portion is, but at the same time, I'll take all of America's comfort foods and actually make them healthier too. So there'll be a lot of healthy swaps. And he goes, great, love it, see ya, go write it. So I wrote that book. And what's great about this book, and what I'm proud about it, is that it has all the comfort food classics. Every recipe in calorie count is exactly divisible by 100. So if you can imagine what we did from a formulation standpoint to make sure that every recipe is exactly divisible by 100. And we show you in the book what the 100-calorie portion looks like. But that doesn't mean you should just have 100 calories. Of course not. You should have between 400 and 600 calories for dinner. So it just tells you, like in a lasagna, this is what it is. Like the whole lasagna might be in 36 pieces or 3,600 calories, but this is how much you should eat. And we have like drawings. I'll show you, for example. Let me get a good one. Let me find one. Well, here's my chili. I love this, my Southwestern chili. So what we show you is like a half a cup of chili, you'll see, is 100 calories. And we say for dinner, you can have up to 2 cups of chili, which is a lot of chili. So it just kind of shows you how much you can make. Same for like casseroles and things like that. So it's a great book. It's on Amazon, or you can actually get it on my website. And it's gotten almost 5 stars over, we've sold tens of thousands of books. So yeah.
That's great.
You have to brag about Mona. She wrote the isogenics, like all of the booklets that I've sent you guys through text, Michelle especially. Mona wrote all of those recipes. So
yeah. So what my business is, so I've written, this is me, what I say my 2 books, The Perfect Portion and Satisfied, is me kind of coming out of the curtain. Because my other job, what I do is that I go to corporations like an Isogenics or like an appliance, Philips North America's appliance company, or a Shark Ninja, and they hire me to write cookbooks for them. So in order for people to get like really excited about using their appliance and for them to have really positive experiences. So most of my bits, so when Lindsay had mentioned that I had written over 20 books, I've written over 20 books kind of like behind the curtain for a bunch of different corporations so that people will get 5 stars, people will recommend those products to their friends, etc. I've done that for a bunch of companies. And the past 4 years, I decided, well, I've learned a lot in these past few years. I'm ready to do my own thing. So I wrote the Perfect Portion cookbook, and I'm excited to write my own Satisfied cookbook, which will be available in a month. So
I have another question. What is your favorite? So I love my my foodie, my Ninja, my air fryer. What is your favorite recipe besides your chips? Because I know that's probably what you would have said. What is your favorite recipe in the air fryer?
Okay, so you're gonna laugh. One of my favorite recipes in the air fryer, the salmon that we made tonight can be made in the air fryer. And it comes out just as delicious, if not better. And you just follow the recipe the same way. And then what you do is you put the vegetables on the bottom of the air fryer and pop the salmon on top. And it comes out, you almost get like a crispy coating on the salmon, and it's so, so good. So I would say that. I would say in the air fryer, I also like, I'm trying to think of my new cookbook, what else we put in the air. We have the salmon version. We have, you can actually make meatballs in the air fryer. They come out really delicious and crunchy on the outside. They're really, really good. And they're really simple and easy to make. I make desserts in the air fryer. I have actually a great recipe in my cookbook of banana fritter, which is basically a coated banana with some coconut. And you can throw it in the air fryer and they come out really crispy and really yummy.
Wow. And in terms of, I don't know if there's like a rule of thumb. So how long do you cook something in an air fryer compared to an oven? So say like the recipe we just did, how long would that convert to in the air fryer? Is there like a range?
So you're going to save time using your air fryer because one thing, you're not preheating. You know, if you're preheating a regular oven at 400 degrees, that's going to take you 15 to 20 minutes. To preheat an air fryer takes about 4 minutes. So that's one thing. And then for the salmon, I would say this meal would probably take about 12 to 15 minutes versus 20 to 25 minutes. So yeah.
Do you ever cook anything in the oven and then throw it in the air fryer to like give it a finishing crisp?
Yeah, you could do that if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other questions do ladies have for her?
I do have a question. So the vegetables that you put in, not all those vegetables cook at the same rate, right? I know I've made Brussels sprouts in the oven and roasted them, and they take quite a while. So how do you kind of manage
Okay.
combination?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. So it's all about how you cut your vegetables.
Yeah.
So if you want vegetables to all cook at like 25 minutes, you
Yeah.
can take those Brussels sprouts and you can quarter them or half them and they'll come out, they'll be ready in 25 minutes. And it's also the spacing that you put on the sheet when you're cooking it. You have to really make sure that it's all in one layer. That's really, really important. As I mentioned before, sweet potatoes typically take 40 to 45 minutes. But if you cut them up into small little pieces, again, leaving enough surface area, it will take a lot less time to cook. And also it's really important to do, because I just realized, make sure your internal temperature of your oven is real. And I would recommend getting an internal thermometer for the inside of your oven. Because one thing that I realized this summer is that my oven here isn't as warm as my oven at home. And sometimes you think you're setting it for 400 when it's really might be at 360, and those 40 degrees make a huge difference.
Yeah, because my salmon's not done yet, so I feel like my oven wasn't hot enough.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions, ladies? You've got an expert here. Ask for anything.
So what about if you were going to do grilling? So instead of putting it in the oven, you wanted to put it on your grill. Is it a similar type of process as far as the marinade and how you grill?
Yeah, so what I would do, I'm thinking it through how I would do it in the oven. Yeah, I would marinate it like for 7 or 8 minutes before. Throw your grill on. You want to make sure on your grill, if you're using an outdoor grill or even an indoor grill, that you want to make sure it's preheated. You never want to put salmon on a cold grill. So you want to preheat your grill 5 to 10 minutes and make sure that the temperature reads like around 400 degrees. And then it's similar. I mean, it's basically I think for salmon, it's like, I think it's like 4 to 5 minutes per side. And then what you want to make sure with any fish, for fish, you want to make sure always have an internal thermometer for grilling, because sometimes it's hard to tell. You want to make sure your internal temperature for your fish is about 145 degrees.
Would you wrap the fish in aluminum foil and put it, say if it was a charcoal grill, would you wrap it in aluminum foil?
You could if you wanted to, or it depends if you like getting that crusty outside. Either way.
Okay.
So I have a question about using a thermometer, let's say, in the kitchen.
Yeah.
when it says you're supposed to test the temperature of the chicken or this is so stupid. Do you take it out of the oven and put it on top of the oven and test it? Because I mean, I'm always thinking like if you open up the door and just pull the rack out, isn't the temperature not giving you an accurate reading? I just don't know, like.
No, not really, because you're taking that thermometer and you're going in. You're going really into the internal temp.
Yeah.
So it depends what it is. If it's a 20-pound turkey, I'm not going to do that. So what I might do is just take it out, open up the oven, slide it out, and then I'll stick the thermometer inside, and you have to wait and see.
Right.
And yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to, you can just open up, just test it. And while it's on the pan, you can, the pan is, that it's roasting, baking on or something is still warm, but you're testing the
Yeah, but you're
inside.
going all the way in. You're testing the inside of that. Yeah.
Okay.
So for poultry, you want to be 165.
Right, yeah.
And at fish, you want to be at 145 for safety.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
No worries.
thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully, Mona and I were talking about possibly a series if we can get some more people on board. I know timing is kind of difficult, especially during the summertime, but we would love to have Mona on monthly and create a series of what you guys are looking for, maybe a special series on air fryers or something of that sort. So
Right. I was thinking that maybe the next one, if we wanted to do it, this whole area of snacker-taining, I think everybody's always looking like, what can I have for a snack? And what can I know we're not entertaining a lot, but we always like to have, what's the nosh that I can have, like with a glass of wine or before dinner that's not too filling, but it's healthy for me. And I'm not, eating 500 calories before dinner. And I have a lot of really cool solutions of what you can do for that. And it's fun, So we can definitely do that next time. And if you go on my website, monadolgov.com, there's a ton of recipes. And I've started and on my Facebook page at Mona Dolgov, during the early part of COVID, I probably produced about 54 videos just because I felt I wanted to give back and just kind of to educate and just share with you how to make really simple, healthy meals and kind of introduce you to my new cookbook. And I just went back on this afternoon. I featured one of my new appetizers. That's from Satisfy, the bell pepper nachos. And I plan on going back weekly to kind of just share with you some recipes so you guys will get excited about my new book. So
that sounds great. Oh, that's good. Thank you.
I wanted to ask real quick, the orange that we used, could we have used any citrus? Like lemons, any of the, okay.
Yes, go crazy. Actually, I actually used a clementine. Clementine's really delicious. You can use zest of a clementine, zest of lime, zest of lemon, whatever you like, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, no, we're on a lemon kick in our house. Like I have recipes where apparently lemon zest is in everything. So
love it.
Lemon zest goes really well with blueberries too.
yes, it does.
Yeah.
Actually, I was talking to my nephew. He was just telling me about a tomato sauce, and he put lemon zest in his tomato sauce.
That's
Kind of
interesting.
Over your couscous, game changer.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. As far as like tomato sauce, I actually had the best tomato soup of my life in Portland, Oregon. And I met the chef there. And the trick to making really delicious tomato soup, something very similar to what you said. He actually put a little bit fresh orange juice in the tomato soup, and it made all the difference in the world. It's really delicious. So it probably has the same factors that you're talking about too.
Right, so that tiny little bit of citrus
Yeah.
kind of really makes it zing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And carrots for the sweetness.
Yeah, carrots just for the extra acidity. And if you don't have carrots, just want to put a pinch of baking soda. That works good as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you want to get rid of the acidity, you can just put a pinch of baking soda in your tomato sauce and it'll cut it.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's all chemistry.
Yeah, no, it is. Absolutely. Thank you.
Post all of in on our page. And then I wanted to show you guys, I cannot wait to get into this salmon.
Yum, looks delicious.
Dinner is served. And thank you so much again for joining us, and hopefully we will have more to come. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me, Lindsay. Thank you, Anthony and Lindsay, for having me tonight. And it was nice to meet all of you.
Thank you very
And
much.
if you go on my website, definitely join my community, because if you join my community, I always give away free recipes. If you give me your email address, I send free recipes monthly. So make sure to do that.
Love it.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you.